Good morning, friends, and welcome to this morning's UUCT CRE lesson. We will be starting, as always, with the lighting of the chalice. Please go ahead and light a chalice at home, and remember, if you are using a flame, to get permission from an adult first. We light our chalice to honor the web of all life. We honor the sun and the earth that bring life to us. We honor the plants and creatures of land, water, and air that nourish us. We honor each other gathered here to share the wonder of our world. This morning, Miss Imagany will be reading us a story, Why the Sky is Far Away. I was going to take you all on a nature walk, but I broke my toe this week and have been unable to walk that far. I do apologize. But maybe you guys can go take a nature walk and send me pictures of all the fun things that you find on your walk.
Hey everybody, how you doing? This is Imagany and back again to read another story. This week we're going to be doing the balance in our ecosystem session. So I'm going to be reading a story called Why the Sky is Far Away. Now while I'm reading this, I want you guys to start thinking a little bit more about why is it good to only take what you need of the earth? Why is it good not to take too much from the earth, even though the earth is a very giving planet and it's a very forgiving planet? Why is it good to be mindful of how much we're using? So let me get started on the story. In the beginning, the sky was close to earth, so close that you could reach up and touch it, and you could eat it. In those days, people always had enough to eat, without ever having to work for it. Men and women did not have to plow the fields and sow the seeds and gather the crops. Children did not have to fetch sticks for fire. Whenever anybody was hungry, they just reached up and tore a piece off the sky. People grew careless with the sky's gifts. They broke off more than they needed. After all, the sky was so big, there would always be enough for everybody. Who cared about a little bit of wasted sky? The sky cared. Soon the sky's sorrow turned to resentment, and its resentment grew to anger. The earth says, I offer myself every day to these people, the sky brooded, and they throw me away half-eaten like garbage. People of earth, the sky's eyes flashed light. Clouds bubbled and boiled. You have not treated me with respect. You've wasted my gifts. I warn you, if you are greedy, I will leave, and I will move far away. The people listened and promised to be more careful. After that, no one broke off more than they could eat, and they always remembered to thank the sky. But then, the time came for the greatest festival of the year. In honor of the chief of the kingdom, the night rang with music, bells clanged, drums banged, people stamped and clapped and laughed. The tables were heaped with dishes specially prepared by the sky. The sky in every flavor, from custard apple to cocoa plum. There was plenty for everyone, for the sky was generous. It trusted the people to take only what they needed. But there was one woman who was never satisfied. Osato always wanted more. Her arms were heavy with brass bracelets, but brass wasn't good enough for her. She wanted coral beads, and most of all, she loved to eat. First, she helped herself to a spoonful of neon yellow sky that tasted like pineapple, chunk after chunk disappearing into her mouth. Then she ladled out some sky stew, spicy and warm. She lifted the dish to her lips, draining it, dumplings and all. Soon her stomach was stuffed. She loosened her robe. What next? Delicate slices of morning sky, pink and glistening. With a swift movement, she scooped them up and slurped them all down at once. At last the tables were empty, and Osato was full. She waddled home. She was full to bursting, but her eyes kept wandering to the sky. What would it taste like right now? Citrus storms? Her taste buds tingled. Luscious mango? Her mouth watered. Honey sunsets? She licked her lips. Her fingers began to pull a spoon that she kept tucked under her headscarf, just in case. She stopped herself just in time. Osato knew that the sky offered itself only because no one ever took more than it needed. And she knew that she didn't need any more, but oh, she just wanted some. Just one more spoonful. The sky is so huge, she said to herself. It can't hurt just to have a little bit more. She pulled out her spoon and plunged it in. She savored a mouthful of sky and another, and she threw down her spoon and scooped with her hands, sucking the delicious sky from her fingertips. Finally, without another thought, Osato pulled down a great slab of sky, enough to feed a family for weeks. She licked all around the edges, chewing more slowly now. She stared up at the huge hole above her. She stared down at the enormous mound of sky, and she knew that she had taken more than she could eat. Above her head, there was rumblings. What have I done? Osato gasped. I cannot waste the sky. What shall I do? Well, she called her husband over to help, but he had been feasting too and was slumped in his chair, too full to even move. Still, he managed a few mouthfuls. She called her children to help, but they were too full from the wonderful feast. Still, they forced down a few fingerfuls. She called to her neighbors to help, but they had been at the festival too, and the sight of more food, they held their stomachs and groaned. But they ate as much as they could, with worried frowns on their faces and anxious glances above their heads. But even with the help of the entire village, they could not eat that last piece of sky. Osato had taken too much. What does it matter? Osato told herself at last. Just a bit of waste. But the feeling in the pit of her stomach told her otherwise. No one slept well that night. The next morning, the sky did not offer his food to the people. Parents had nothing for breakfast, and children cried hungry. Osato knelt to the ground, rocking and sobbing. I'm so sorry. But the sky just sighed. With a great rush of air, it lifted itself up, high as the treetops, high as the mountaintops. High above the earth rose the sky, far beyond reach of humans. He says, I gave you all that you needed, but you still took more. I cannot stand such greed. I must leave, and I will not return. But how will we live? Wept Osato. What will we eat? There was silence. Her tears fell to the earth, and the earth spoke. Dry your tears, it said gently. I can feed you, but you will have to work for a living. You will have to learn how to plow fields and sow seeds and harvest crops. And remember what you have learned today. Take only what you need, and I will give it gladly. Okay, I will, promised Osato through her tears. I will never take more than I need, ever, ever again. So, with that story, go back to the earlier question that I posed, and I want you guys to think about why do you think it was so important to take just enough and not too much? I also encourage you to think about what is a meal that you've had, maybe even a dessert, that you just can't stop eating. How did it make you feel after you overate? Was there bliss, glee, or was there remorse or regret? Um, and if there's anything else that you guys wonder about the story, leave it down below. Thanks for joining us today. Bye.
Thank you, Miss Imagany, for reading that story. Today we learned about balance and why it is so important that we do not take more than we need. Though we do not have a sky, we still need to make sure that we can share with those around us and that everyone gets what they need. Thank you for joining us today.